Love is without a doubt the most beautiful thing on planet Earth. But what happens when you fall in love while working on board a cruise ship and you get into a relationship? Well, unfortunately, it usually isn't pretty. As someone that's worked for cruise lines such as Carnival, NCL, and Virgin, I've seen a lot of love in relationships mixed in with the sea air. But unfortunately, it often doesn't stand the test of time. Typically, in relationships on board cruise ships, it usually ends with a nightmarish, horrible ending that leaves you heartbroken forever. That's why for today's video, I'm gonna give you 5 horrible things that take place with relationships on board cruise ships. Now, one last thing before we get started, I have to throw a teeny tiny disclaimer out there. Everything that I say in today's video is not going to apply to every single crew member. Every situation is different. For number one, a lot of the crew members that are in relationships on board with other crew members are cheating. Now, this is something that unfortunately happens quite a bit. You'll have a crew member that's in a relationship back on land, and as we call in the real world, because on board a cruise ship it's a giant fantasy, I'll explain it later. But they have a relationship with their significant other, boy, girl, you name it, and they get on the ship and they decide to, well, make some changes and have an addition to the relationship without the other party member knowing, and it can be pretty bad at times. However, these things tend to happen. We use the hashtag, it's the Shiplife, and you're gonna hear this a lot because typically when stuff like this does happen, like cheating and somebody going outside of a relationship, even a marriage, well, a lot of people are just kind of used to it, and it's not really seen as such a big deal for a lot of crew members on board cruise ships. Most of the time, when a crew member is in a relationship with somebody on board working with them, their marriage or their relationship back home is going to be, well, somewhat of a secret. Most of the other crew members that are dating the other crew members never find out about the real relationship that they have back at home. This often does make working on board a cruise ship a very dangerous place because I'll be 100% honest with you, the temptation is always there. Why? I always tell people when you're working on board a cruise ship, you're on a beautiful cruise ship, a giant floating hotel with beautiful, amazing, and energetic, outgoing, super social people traveling to some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. You also got the motion of the ocean mixed in there, and well, it's a recipe for potential disaster for a relationship that is not stable or maybe new, or well, just can't stand the test of time or a little bit of distance. One time I had a friend, let's call him Brandon. We worked on the ship together back when I worked for NCL, and we started the same contract together, and he gave his girlfriend, his real girlfriend back on land in the normal world, what you would call a promise ring. It's this weird promise thing. It's a ring that's not an engagement ring, but you promise to essentially be with them forever. He gave it to his girlfriend before he started his contract, and well, it was his first contract, and little did he know he was about to get a rude awakening with a bunch of beautiful foreign women all over the place. Needless to say, end of the story, he didn't even last a week. For number two, most of these relationships that happen on board cruise ships are more physical than anything. You could put this stuff in the category of puppy dog love. Let's just say whenever you are in a relationship on board the cruise ship, you are always in the honeymoon phase, meaning you aren't really seeing the real side of a lot of people because like I said, you're in this basically like dream world, traveling to beautiful places around beautiful people constantly, and the typical elements of life usually isn't there. You don't usually have a bunch of crazy bills to pay, you're not having to drive anywhere, you're not dealing with the stresses of everyday life. So anybody that you can meet could seemingly seem like this perfect person that can do no wrong and is an angel that you should be with forever. This is something that happens literally all the time. You also have the added factor of what I like to call ship goggles. This means that, well, it's not exactly an abundant place of beautiful people on board cruise ships. There's usually a ranking system of people in different departments that go with different people anyway. For example, the officers are usually the ones that are with the entertainers or the girls that are at the spa, and everybody kind of divvies up the rest throughout the contract. When it comes to people being in relationships, it's very simple. Some people try to make relationships work and they don't always work out. I'll explain a little bit later on with some more points. But whenever you get to, let's say, the crew bar, for example, and you've had a few drinks and you've been on the ship for a while now and you hadn't really been getting any action, you haven't been doing a lot of bed wrestling, that girl, I hate to put it on a number system, but I think this is the best way that I can explain this. You got a girl that would typically, or a guy that would typically be like a 5, you being on this ship and seeing that, well, there aren't a lot of options. They go from being a 5 to a 7 overnight or after a couple drinks. And just like that, they are your number one target. This is something that happens regularly on board the cruise ship. People hooking up with other people that they wouldn't normally hook up with on land. I'm telling you, it gets absolutely crazy at times. Circling back to my first point with people being in relationships and marriages whenever they get on the cruise ship, you got people that are married that are, let's say, a man married to a woman. They might get on the ship and find out who they truly are. They might discover themselves, or they might, reach out a little bit and experiment. And, just again, maybe just kind of be with somebody of maybe the same gender as them. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but these things do happen. It might be a girl that ends up with a girl that has a husband back at home. I'm telling you, there is literally no rules, no right or wrong, or any rhyme or reason why a lot of these things happen on the cruise ship. Except for the fact that you're on a ship, like I said, with a bunch of people that are foreign, and you're on a ship, the motion of the ocean, that old chestnut. Number 3, friends will help each other cheat. This might sound like something that's extremely taboo and hogwash, something that if you've never worked on a cruise ship, you might say that never happens, but I promise you it does. And when we use the term taboo, I gotta be honest with you, everything on board a cruise ship is taboo when you're a crew member. What I mean by they help each other cheat, like I said, again, I hate to keep circling back to number 1, but it is definitely without a doubt a foundation to a lot of these points that I'm gonna bring up in the video. You'll have somebody that is in a relationship or married on board the ship, and well, let's say everybody knows about it, because on board the cruise ship, if people don't know, and let's say you have some people that can't keep their mouth shut, or if their boyfriend, husband, wife is all over Instagram, then people are gonna find out very quickly. I'm telling you, some of these people are some of the best investigators that you would ever see in your life. They should all be part of the FBI. It's crazy. So when they find out that somebody is in a relationship on land, but also in a relationship at sea, some people really just don't say much about it. Well, it's kind of like a code. You just don't say it. You don't get in anybody's business. It's just kind of like the law of the land around there. And if somebody has a good friend on board that always hangs out with them and they know all the dirty business that's going on, whenever that person that has their land boyfriend, girlfriend, husband decides to come on the ship for a visit, they will essentially play lookout. This means that the crew member is hanging out with his, what I like to call, ship bae. You get in the ship, boyfriend and girlfriend, it's their ship bae, and their significant other is on board. You have friends that will literally keep watch and make sure that the two are not caught with the other person, the other man, the other woman. I won't say the exact ship because I don't want to expose anybody here, but I was on a Royal Caribbean ship earlier this year, and I have a lot of friends that work on board because we used to work at this theme park, Busch Gardens, together eons ago, and well, they had a friend that had a husband that happened to be on board, but they also had a boyfriend that was an officer. And well, they didn't want to stop seeing the officer because they knew time was limited, and they said they were just having a good time with them as opposed to their husbands. Whenever the two crew members that were in a relationship would go see a show together and they didn't want to get caught, my friend essentially had to keep watch. She basically would stay outside of a bar that was nearby the opening for the theater. Whenever the husband, well, should they come by, they would just send a simple text on WhatsApp and let them know that they were coming. That way the two could separate. And in case you were wondering, yes, the officer also was aware of the husband. He just didn't care. Now, aside from friends helping each other cheat, aiding in that horrible situation, you have some friends amongst crew members that are quite legitimate backstabbers. What I mean by this is that you may have somebody that's in a relationship with a girl or guy, and let's say theoretically, because of the way the contracts are set up, you have some people that are starting, ending on different times. Somebody may get in a relationship with somebody, and let's say a guy and a girl. The guy is ending his contract, it's done, he's going home. Meanwhile, the girl still has 2 months left, and you had a best friend that was kind of, lurking, or he was lying. He wasn't exactly the best friend that he portrayed himself to be to the other guy. But when the guy is getting ready to leave that's in the relationship, the best friend will promise him the moon. He says, hey, I'll watch out for her, I'll take care of her, don't worry, I'll make sure she's not doing anything crazy, getting too wild at the crew bar, making sure she's not cheating, blah, blah, blah. It's all a complete lie. Because lo and behold, he's been waiting for the opportunity. And as soon as his best friend leaves, you now see the guy go in for the girl, and you never know. She might actually be down for it. I'm telling you, these memes that these crew members create and the topics that they talk about in these crew forums are absolutely wild, they're crazy, and they're 100% crew. I hope some crew members do see this so they can attest to everything that I'm saying here and let all of you know that it's absolutely true what goes on down below. Number 4, the relationships don't last. Now, I won't say never because I have seen it happen. I have good friends of mine that met when I was working on board the NCL Escape. They are now married with 2 kids and living happily ever after. However, those things happening are extremely, and I mean extremely rare. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, you have a situation where you are on a beautiful ship traveling to some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. And well, when it comes to these types of relationships, you don't really find out how somebody truly is and who they truly are until you get off the ship into the real world. And oftentimes you'll see a lot of people basically lying about who they are or what it is that they have. I remember every time I worked on a ship, there was always those couple people that said, well, I have a Maserati back home, I've got a Tesla, I've got 3 houses, blah, blah, blah. This is jargon that you'll hear regularly, and this is done in order to attract a potential ship bae on board, because at the end of the day, who is really going to find out? How are they going to find out unless they actually get into a relationship with you in which you guys become friends or married or whatever it is off of the ship? And that doesn't really happen often. So what do you have to lose? I once had a friend back when I was working for Carnival. She was absolutely amazing. We weren't in a relationship. We would just hook up a lot. And we eventually ended up hanging out off of the ship. But prior to all that, she was always bragging about what she had. And she said she had 2 homes, and she said she had a G-Wagon, all these things. However, when I actually met up with her in person over yonder across the pond, because she lived in Europe, it turns out that she did have these things, but they didn't belong to her. They were her parents. It was all daddy's money. However, we are still good friends to this day, so it didn't really matter. But in a relationship, it would obviously change things just a little to find out that people aren't exactly who they say they are. Now, before we get to our 5th and last point that I want to bring up in today's episode, I do want to thank all of you for watching this video as you almost survived another episode of the Shiplife. If you did enjoy because you've made it this far, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and also make sure you add my other socials on Instagram and join my Facebook group. That way you can stay updated whenever I post these videos. The 5th thing that I want to talk about when it comes to cruise ship relationships is that it will literally change you forever. What I mean by this is that the ship life takes no prisoners, and it is not for the faint of heart. There are a lot of people that I know personally that can never go back to a normal relationship, because if you look at working on the ship, you are in and out all the time. 6 months on, 6 months off, 3 months on, 4 months off. You're constantly moving and traveling all over the place, and you're used to meeting interesting people. You get so much to the point where a normal person back at home just is not going to cut it for you. There's just no excitement, no thrill, no, well, foreign people to really be around. I mean, yes, you can have these people, but usually you'll meet them on vacation. Me living in Florida, I meet a lot of foreign people, but it's not the same feel as me going to these countries or being on a ship where I can get to know somebody outside of maybe just them being on vacation for a weekend and us having like a hookup, riding the roller coaster, doing some bed rustle. What I'm trying to say is that it can be very difficult for some people to adjust to normal life after they've regularly been in and out of cruise ship relationships. So much to the point that where a lot of them typically never stop working on ships because of relationships and how they are conducting themselves, or they settle with finding somebody that they know maybe isn't the best person for them, but they know that they can't survive with a normal person on land anymore. Now, there are a million points that I can bring up when it comes to relationships. You get it? I always love saying it. I don't know why I didn't bring it up earlier, but relation and ships, it just goes together so smoothly. But anyway, I could talk about this all day. However, I'm going to wrap this video up right here. If you guys want me to make a part 2, you want me to go into more detail in another video, just let me know in the comment section below. Like I said, if you enjoyed this video at all, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If there are any crew members, you don't have to tell exactly what you did. If you want to remain anonymous, maybe you can put it in there if you want to and you don't care anymore, or just use the hashtag Shiplife if you know what I'm talking about. I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.